Hey, how's it going, folks? This is Hellbent, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use my P-class control tool. There'll be a link to it in the description. All you need to do is just go to the pastbin page, copy the script, paste it into a new script, and then run it, and you will get this. Currently it only has the P button class, which is the focus of this video, but eventually I will be adding in the P tab class, the P checkbox class, the P radio class, and perhaps some other class that I haven't actually invented yet. So the purpose of this is so that way you can create custom looking buttons. You don't have to just always use the same default gray buttons, and with this tool it allows you to create those custom looking buttons without spending a lot of time, because sometimes it can be a lot of effort to create custom buttons. So this makes it very simple. It's just a little bit more effort than creating the default buttons, and that's the whole idea, is to make it as simple as possible. So let's go into it. I had done a tutorial about a month or two ago where I covered everything to do with this P button, like how the class works, how these buttons work, how they're made, what the ideas behind it, some ideas on how you can create your own and take the concept of it and change it and make it your own. So I'll leave a link to that video in the description if you want to check that out, but if you just want to use this tool, here it is. So the first thing we need to do is, I'll start off with what I have on my page right now. All I have is just single instance force. I've created just a little simple GUI, and then I've attached a label to it so that way if I hit the X button or if I hit Control plus Escape, it exits the script. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this GUI and add some of my custom buttons onto it. So to do that, there's a couple of steps I need to do. First, I need to add the class. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the tool and I'm going to go to Clip Full Class, and you can add this to your library. If you don't know how to do that, just do what I'm doing in this video. That's all I'm going to spend on that. So all I'm going to do is now that I have that class in my clipboard, I'm just going to paste it at the bottom of my script. Because I'm using the class in the script itself, what I need to do is there's this one line at the top of the class that contains a couple of variables. I need to move it from the bottom of my script up to the top. So I'm just going to copy this list of variables and I'm going to remove it from there, and up near the top of my script I'm going to paste it in. Now that I have the class in my script, the next thing I need to do is run the setup or add the setup. So I'm going to hit this button here that says Clip Setup. And then up at the top of my script, I'm going to paste that in. Because I'm including the class in my script itself, I need to get rid of this line here that says include that class. So all that's left is just this P button startup function and then adding one more global variable. Now that I have that, I can go ahead and start adding my buttons. So that comes to the tool here. So once I have the first button, if I'm going to be adding multiple buttons, I only need to do it through here once, and that'll give me the template of what the button looks like. So the first thing I need is the Windows name. I've given this GUI a name of 1. So Windows name is 1. The variable associated with it is already selected. You don't need to give the button associate any variables with it. It does that automatically. I do need to attach a label, so this label gets executed when I click on that button. So I'm just going to call it demo. I'm just going to call it demo. And in my script, I'm going to add that label. Next, I'm going to position my button somewhere on my GUI. So I'll do, let's say, X10, Y10, a width of, let's say, 100, and a height of, let's say, 30. Next, I have 5 colors. One color is for the background color. It would be difficult for you to see, but there's this black border underneath this button and to the left of it. You can use, for these 5 colors here, you can use the, I think, 15 or 16 colors that you can use by word. For example, blue, green, red, black, white, silver. Or you can use the millions and millions of hexadecimal colors. So I'm going to make the background black. I'm going to make the trim white, or that basically what you see as the yellow on this one. So I'm going to make that white. I'm going to make the surface of the button I'll make it a gray, all in grayscale. So I'll do 22, 22, 22. I'll make it when the next. So this is the first color here is what the button looks like when it's at rest. The second color is what it looks like when I mouse over it, and the third color is what it looks like when I click on it. So for example, here it's got a grayscale color, but if I mouse over it, it highlights it in blue. I can do the same here, but what I'll do instead is I'm going to make it when I mouse over it, it just changes it to a slightly lighter color. So I'll do like 27, 27, 27. And then when I click on it, I'll make it a lighter color, let's say 20, 20, 20. Next is offset. So automatically the text centers itself on the x-axis, so it'll center it in the center of the button, but it's unable to center it along the y-axis. So depending on the font options that you have and the size of my button, you'll need to, after you create your button and add your text onto it, you'll need to play around with that value, and I'll show you that in a minute. So for the moment, I'm just going to leave the offset at 0. Now I need some text on my button. I'll just say button text, but I can put whatever I want on my button. Now that I have the button set up, I need to just add that to my script. So to do that, I just hit clip P button, go to my script, add in my button. In the label, this demo label that I've attached, there's one more thing I need to do in order for it to actually register clicks or to change the appearance for clicks, and that is attach the clip function. So go to the tool, hit clip click function, and then add that to the label, any labels that are attached to your buttons. What you need to do is with a bunch of the other classes, you can attach the controls themselves to a common label, like you can share labels between a bunch of different controls. But with the buttons themselves, you can have multiple buttons using the same label, but you can only use buttons with that label. So that's that. That's it. We have enough to run. So like I said, there's one thing that we'll need to adjust afterwards, and that is this offset value, which will adjust the position of our text on our button. And that has to do with the height of our button and the font that we're using. So I can see that my button, I'm going to make my button a little bit bigger. So I'll go over in this, I'll show you how it looks in the function itself, or creating the instance of the class. So the first thing here is the button's the Windows name, the GUI's name, so it's GUI1. The second thing you'd never touch this. This is the variable that's associated with this button. The next one is the label that I'm attaching this button to. Next is the X position, then the Y position, the width, the height, the background color of my button, the trim color of my button, the button at rest, the top color at rest, the top color hovered, and the top color pressed, the text that appears on my button, and then the offset for the text. So I'm going to adjust, I'm going to play around, I'm going to make my button a little bit bigger because I have too much text there. So I'm going to say, let's say, I'll make it 200 by 50. Before I adjust the text, the offset for the text, I'm going to see what it looks like. Okay, so now if I want, I can leave the text up at the top of the button like that, or I can put it more towards the center by playing around with this value. And I might have to play around with it a couple of times. So I'll do, let's say, 12. That's good enough. You know, it's still a little bit towards the top, but you know, you get the idea that if I want to, I can maybe make it 14 or 16, and that'll move the text down a little bit, getting it closer to being centered with the button. So that's it. That's how you do it. That's how you add the button. And if I can see that there's the button at rest. Here's what it looks like when I mouse over it. This is what it looks like when I pressed. I've added code into it so that way if I press the button and while it's still pressed down, if I decide that I don't want to execute that code associated with that button, if I move my cursor away before I release the button, it won't execute that code. So let's go ahead and add some code to have our button actually do something. So for this, I'll just have it run, I'll have it run a program. I'll have it run calc.exe, but I can have it do anything I want. anything you would have a normal button do. So now, like I said, if I click on the button and if I move my cursor away, nothing's going to happen. But if I want to run it, there we go. So just clicking on the button, I run calculator exe. Now that I have my first button, I can easily use this as a template to create more buttons. So I can even build them in a loop. So for example, if I want to have a layout like this where I have buttons, tons and tons of buttons, I can just create a nested loop of changing the X position, Y position. I'm not going to go into this in this video, but you know, it is very easy to do that, just putting it into a nested loop. But I will add another button. So what I'll do is I'm going to duplicate this, and if I want, I can also change the font for the new button. So I'll change it. I'll make I won't bother with changing the font type or anything like that. I'll just change the color. So I'll change the color of it, and I need to move that button now. So I'll move it so that way it sits beside it. So its width is 200. So I'll put this at 210, 220, 220. Now it should be this button here, and then this next button will sit 10 pixels off to the left of it, or the right of it. And there we go. And I'll change the text. Button 2. And I'll leave it attached to the same label, but I'll show you. I'll do two more quick things, and then we can get out of here. So here I have two buttons. Right now they're both attached to the same label, so they both do the exact same thing. If I want to leave them both attached to the same label, what I can do is I can use the name of that button. So for example, for this demo, I'll say if I press the first button, then I'm going to pop up a tooltip that says something, and if not, if I press the second button, I'll have it run the calculator. So I'll say if a GUI control equals 1 for button 1, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it pop up a tooltip that says button 1, and then I'll get it to sleep for 200 milliseconds, and then I'll hide that tooltip. Other words, if I press button 2, now I can just say else, or I can say else if control equals 2, etc., etc. I'll write it exactly like that. I'll do else if, oops, a GUI control equals 2, run the calculator and close this program. Let's see, I'll do go sub GUI close, which will close the GUI, which also exits the program. Alright, so if I hit button 1, I should get a tooltip that says button 1. If I hit button 2, it's going to run the calculator and close this program. Okay, that's that example. I'll do one more example, like I said, where you're just using different labels, which is probably the preferred method to do it. So rather than come up with a new name for a label, I'll just call it demo 2. I'm going to get rid of all of this code. I'll still have it pop up a tooltip that says here sleep for 200 milliseconds, and then remove it. And then demo 2 is my next label for my next button. I need to once again include the click function and then have it do what I want it to do. Run. And there we go. tooltip that says here, run the calculator, run the calculator, run the calculator. Tooltip that says here. Okay, that's it. See how easy it is? It's not much more effort than just creating a normal button. That's everything you need. If you have any questions about it, just go ahead and ask in the comments. Try to keep your questions related to this. But other than that, I think we're done. Anyways, peace.